everyone, it's Mithrilda and welcome back to my journey of learning to draw. So it turns out that you don't actually need the lamp before you get started on block 2, which is something that would have been nice to know before I spent my entire Thanksgiving break actually relaxing instead of working on my art. Although I feel like that's probably a blessing in disguise now that I look back on it. I finished up block 1 right before Thanksgiving, took a few days off, slept, ate, played video games, and then right after Thanksgiving break ended, I realized, hey, I don't actually need a lamp. We're not going to do any painting for the first 10 exercises. So you win some, you lose some. I had a lot of fun, and I've been having a lot of fun doing block 2 now that I realized I could. And it's a good thing too, because my lamp was supposed to get here 5 days ago. From IKEA, and it's been late on the shipping. My order from Blick Art Supplies is also late. Very sad. COVID and Christmas together. I guess we'll see when it gets here. I still have 5 more homeworks to go before I need that lamp, so let's hope the timing works out. So the reason I thought that I needed the lamp is because for block 2 exercise 1, the first thing it starts off with is how do you make a shadow box? And basically, we just take a box, tape it up, cut a hole into it, and then we stick a lamp in so then we have a controlled source of light for the still life subjects. This controlled source of light becomes really important when you actually start to paint the pieces, but for the first 10 exercises, we're just learning about how to sight and draw in proportion, and we don't really need the lighting so far. But I went ahead and made my shadow box, and so the instructions said to use duct tape, but I didn't have any duct tape, and I didn't want to go outside, and I didn't want to wait because I am impatient. And so I used packing tape instead. I looked it up. Apparently, packing tape is good for sticking onto cardboard, whereas duct tape is good for sticking onto itself, or something like that. I have no idea how it works. But basically, you want the joins to be really strong because you're going to put the lamp on top of the box, and you want it to be able to hold the weight of the lamp. So I did a lot of extra taping around the top. I did crisscrosses for structural stability. I don't know how much it's going to help, but I have a very heavily taped up box sitting on the mini fridge in the corner of my room right now. So at the beginning of block 2, Kevin acknowledges how it might be a little strange to sort of learn the skills out of order. Usually, people will teach you how to draw in proportion first, and then they teach you how to flesh it out with the light and the shadow, whereas in Evolve, we take a tracing, right? And we apply all the light and shadow. And then afterward, we're learning to do the proportions. And he says that he likes doing it this way because he finds that by doing the light and shadow first, it trains the students' visual acuity and it gives them more of a foundation to build the proportional drawing on top of. I feel like it's super iconic, right? Where you have the artist and they have their paintbrush or their pencil and they're sighting and measuring and all that. I remember doing an exercise like this in my drawing class that I took years ago. And I remember learning stuff like this at the beginning of my art journey. I think I even talked about it on YouTube a bit. And I felt like it was so boring. And I was like, okay, so now I'm just comparing lengths. How is this gonna help me be able to do it without the tool? And also, what does this have to do with drawing stuff from imagination? I always just felt like it was so slow and boring. And it seems like, an old technique, perhaps outdated. And so I quit pretty early on because it just didn't seem like fun. But basically what Kevin says about this is that this is a tool that we are using to check our proportions. And we never want to use it first because the first thing and the most important thing we want to train is our eyes and being able to judge proportions and distances. But we follow it up with this so we can check whether or not we got it right. And then we can sort of calibrate for next time and improve those skills over time. But if you come at everything using the tool first, you're never going to be able to step away from it. You're going to create your own crutch that you can never live without. Eventually, the goal is such that you look at something, you think, oh, these are the proportions, then you check it and it's right every single time. And then you can not use this anymore. You can just look at things and draw them properly in proportion. And in order to gain mastery over the skill, we're going to be starting off with really simple subjects, and we're going to build it up slowly from there. Like measuring, looking, proportions, it's a skill, and you can apply it to any subject matter. An example that he gave is that you don't need to have a person in front of you to learn how to measure a person. You just need to know how to measure really well, and you can apply it to a person afterward. And he warns that if you go for too complex of subjects too soon, you can actually hurt your progress and not actually be practicing the skill, because you'll be struggling all the time instead of actually applying these things and learning how to do it better. And he says that struggling is not necessarily a good thing, and that you don't need to kill yourself doing this. You need to get on a solid foundation in the shallow water. And he said that in the video, which I thought was so interesting, because if we think back to my Block 1 overview video that I made, I thought of a lot of drawing classes and stuff that I was following as like just pushing me into deep water and like poking me until I started to learn how to swim like through the struggling. And I think it's like really affirming to just hear him say like, no, you don't have to struggle to improve. And in fact, if you're struggling all the time doing stuff that's way too hard for you, that can keep you from learning. And I think that's really interesting. It kind of reminds me of muscles and working out. Having soreness in your muscles doesn't really tell you anything about how hard you're working or how much muscle you're building. And so it doesn't have to be painful for you to get a good workout and get a lot of improvement. I feel like I'm hearing that the same thing applies to art. It doesn't have to be painful, and it doesn't have to be hard for you to get improvement. And in fact, if you aren't hurting yourself, right? If you aren't injuring yourself, you can probably make progress even faster. I thought that was really interesting. And he says that we are going to be using this skill and reinforcing the skill throughout the rest of the program. So as long as you do your best, you will get lots and lots of practice and you will improve, as long as you don't try to jump face first into it from the very beginning. And he says that you'll know you're ready to increase the difficulty a bit when stuff starts to feel really easy for you, and that there's no benefit or education to doing stuff that you're not ready for yet. So after I made my box, I felt like I didn't have enough time that night to do the exercise, so I came back the next day, and I feel like I wasn't really taking it that seriously the first day. I was using like my rolly office chair and blah blah blah. So I came back and I swapped out for a chair that does not roll, so I can maintain like a consistent posture and distance from the still life subjects. And the first exercise involves 3 balls, and I didn't have 3 balls, so I decided to use 3 cans. But there's like a perspective, right? If you're looking down at the cans, the height and the width won't be equal. So I had to sit down on the ground in order to have like that equal plane where I could see them as real circles. I also had to tape down my cans to make sure they didn't roll, so they could maintain like the good distance between each other. Because for the first exercise, I think it said you want to have 1 ball, right? And then you have another one, and then the distance between the two should be exactly 1 ball's length. And I couldn't get them to stay. I'm not sure how they got their shadow box with like such a surface that the balls weren't rolling around, but I had to tape down my cans. I don't think that should be a problem though. And they make sure to emphasize and repeat that these shouldn't be throwaway exercises. I was there for like 30 to 45 minutes just verifying that I was measuring the widths properly between the balls. I feel like this section is kind of stressful because there's no one else to really verify for me as I'm doing it. I have to be putting forth my best effort in my heart and knowing what I think is right and wrong. And here's a quote from this part of the lesson. "You are learning to see. You are blind right now. This is teaching you how to see. You are not going to be able to match colors well if you can't do this. Teaching your brain to actively view opens up the door to color and proportion, and all the subtlety and nuance that you are blind to right now." And I thought that was super cool and awesome. I mean, it sounds like a superpower to be able to see the world in a whole new way. And I was thinking, I feel like in the past, I would have had a more negative reaction to hearing something like that. I would have been like, you don't know me, and this seems so boring. and I don't see how this could possibly lead to what I'm trying to do in the future. However, after going through 20 exercises within Evolve so far, I realized that this program is trustworthy and that I will improve if I follow the instructions. And I feel like, that's how confidence is born. The more you do something and you succeed, the more you believe that you can do something else and succeed. So something that he mentioned while teaching this was how you don't want to arc like this. You want to be moving along the picture plane both horizontally and vertically. And I feel like I understand the concept, but while I'm sitting there doing the actual measuring, I feel like it's really hard to actually feel what staying along the picture plane feels like, as opposed to moving in this way. I have no idea how to describe it, because when I was watching the video, I was like, oh, that looks so easy. I'm sure I'll know what it feels like if I'm moving on an arc in various directions. But as I'm actually sticking my arm out, I'm like, I don't feel it at all. I know that if I make no adjustments, I'll move along an arc, right? But how do I adjust it to not move along an arc? I don't know, I'm very confused. I just try to stay aware of it. I might report back on this if I feel a difference later on. And I feel like this measuring is actually quite physically hard. I started doing these exercises right after I played Beat Saber for the first time in a while, and my arms were really, really sore. And then adding on holding up my arm for 20 minutes into that was really hard, and it hurt. However, I finished 5 exercises of Evolve at this point, and I have definitely felt my endurance improve over time. Basically the time from when I start until when I'm breathing really hard all over the place and my heart's beating and my muscles are all sore has been increasing over time. I feel like in the past, these were the boring exercises that turned me off from learning the fundamentals in the first place. But now that I know that it's a trustworthy course, right, because it's already helped me develop some other skills. And Kevin promises that we don't have to stick to these rigid, boring, time-consuming methods forever, and that it's a proven method from hundreds of students that came before that after you do this enough, you can just measure with your eyes in 1 to 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes for very complex scenes, and be able to get a very proportional drawing and painting done. And that eventually you'll be freed from having to use these tools, but you get there through using the tools. And I think my shift in mindset has just come from more experience in life. I mean, I used to work at a salad bar, right? And behind the counter, we had lists of ingredients for all of the signature salads so that we knew which ingredients to put in. After making hundreds of salads, you just know which ingredients are in which salad, even if you had to lean on that cheat sheet for a very long time. And stuff like that has happened to me so many times throughout my life that I now trust that even if I have to use something to get started or use something to launch myself, that doesn't mean I have to rely on it forever. So I'm really excited to develop my measuring skills and my proportional drawing skills because I can see how useful that would be for my further art development. And I'm happy to do it using these tools because I know that one day I won't have to use them anymore. At first, I was really spooked because I have to make my own still life arrangements now, right? I have to grab things from my shelves and around the house to put into the shadow box and draw. And that was scary at first because I'm like, what if I make it too hard? What if I make it too easy? What if I don't develop my skills properly? Blah, blah, blah. But one upside that I was thinking about is the fact that I have to do it all myself, which I guess you could say is a downside, but I get to test my own skills now. Because before in block 1, where, Kevin and we would do the same painting, and whenever we went up a bit in difficulty level, he had a video there to guide you on how to add some extra complexity to that subject. But that also meant that I got to see him do it. And I would always get insecure about it. I'd be like, man, if I looked at this reference blind, right? If I hadn't seen it before, would I have made those same choices? Would I have seen that little bit of shadow and that little bit of light and added it into my painting? Would I have been able to think of that? And I just felt like I was copying him. Even though I wasn't painting along with the video, right? I would like watch the video and then try to do it myself following his advice. But I'd already seen him do that painting, so I never got to know if those ideas were mine. Well, now I get to definitely know if all my artistic decisions came from my ability as opposed to being primed by watching someone else do that reference. And I think it feels pretty good when I get that feedback back that my proportions are good and the distance between the objects is good. And I'm like, great, happy, love it. So for all the proportional drawings so far, I've been looking at the still life in the box and then trying to write down what I think they are. Like if I take the height of something as my unit measure, then I'm like, the width is about 90% of the unit measure, the object below it is 1.5 times, blah, 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 and I'll try to construct all the proportions just with my eyes, and then I'll come back with the needle, check it all, and then I will draw it bigger using our ruler thing. But I feel like my eye is surprisingly bad, which was really concerning to me. Like for exercise 3, I took the height of the mushroom as my unit measure. And I compared it to stuff. And I at least thought stuff like, oh, I think this one's 1.1, therefore it's longer than the unit measurement. This is maybe 0.8, so it's shorter than the unit measurement. But when I came back and checked with the needle, I realized that stuff that was longer was actually shorter, and stuff that was shorter was actually longer in some cases. And I felt like that was, I don't know, concerning. And I'm just like, man, I can't even tell if something's longer or shorter than the other one. And I get that flipped, but I knew that because I checked with the needle. And I hope that this will develop over time and maybe I will be able to stop making really obvious mistakes like that. When I was doing it and checking it, I felt like my stomach drop and my heart was beating. I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm so bad at this. But now that I'm thinking back on it, it seems kind of silly to think that way because that's the whole point, right? That's what we're here to train. That's what we're here to use the knitting needle to improve. And so I don't think I feel as bad about it now that I'm here talking about it. When I wrote this down, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to fail. I cannot draw. And now I'm like, nah, son. So for exercise 1, including building the entire shadow box and stuff, it took me 2 hours and 52 minutes. Exercise 2 took me 1 hour and 6 minutes. Exercise 3 took me 1 hour and 11 minutes. Exercise 4 took me 1 hour and 16 minutes. And exercise 5 took me 42 minutes. So I have 5 exercises left before I'm supposed to paint, apparently, so I hope my lamp gets here in time. I, again, thought it would get here 5 days ago, and it's still not here, which is concerning because I really want my lamp. But I've also heard that IKEA is having a lot of fulfillment issues with the holiday season and COVID and all that kind of stuff, so I guess I just have to be patient. I hope this gave you a better view of what the Evolve curriculum is like, and I'm really looking forward to getting started with painting. And I almost forgot since I'm still filming this in December, but it might be the new year by the time this video comes out, so happy New Year's everyone! I hope you had a safe, healthy celebration. And also check out my website. I haven't mentioned it in forever, but I have a blog post up that is footnotes for my video about block 1. There's a log of all of my practice times and how long they were, when I did them, and how long it took for me to get my homework graded. I also have a list of other Evolve students and their Instagram pages so you can see their progress through Evolve, and some advice for anyone who's looking to get into Evolve. You can also see my portfolio of all my Evolve paintings so far if you are interested in such a thing. And sign up for email alerts for videos and blog posts because we all know what YouTube is like. So stay safe and healthy out there everyone, and remember that talent is a myth. Now, get back to work.